This question is about Buffalo. I
Mhm.
have a friend with whom I should not have shared my upset, whose response was, "That didn't happen to you. So what are you upset about?" And I got upset about that response because it's a response I've heard under other circumstances from other people around the same issue. When something racial happens and I'm having some problems with it, I'm basically told, well, you don't live in the South, or you didn't participate in this, or it didn't happen to your family. So I don't understand what you're upset about. It feels like an aggression. Internally, it feels like, it
Ooh.
certainly doesn't feel like an acceptance. So I'm just curious as to what you can share about that particular kind of response to.
Oh, wow. So, Gwen, first, I'm just like my body is having this reaction hearing that it didn't happen to you. What are you upset about? Wow. I'm stunned hearing that. So, I'm just taking a moment to be with that. And just what I'm getting in that is the amount of disconnect that that person and so many people have created in their lives, which I think is part of what the system invites us to do, right? We're invited to just compartmentalize everything and block it off and not let ourselves feel and be impacted by things. And so, wow, I'm actually mourning for the person who said that to you, because I'm getting a sense of how, in some ways, how protected they must need to be to not let themselves feel and to get why you would be upset about this. So that's the first piece. The second piece around where the microaggression in is that for me, it's a complete invalidation of your experience and an invalidation of like everything that this kind of violence means. So this, if I'm imagining most people on this call know, but just in case, um, Gwen's question is in the context of the murders that just happened in Buffalo this past weekend, where an 18-year-old white man killed over 10 Black and global majority folks, and did it under the lens of kind of protecting against like white replacement theory, the idea that people of color are coming into the United States to replace white people, and white folks need to protect themselves against that. So that's the context in which this is happening. And so even when I frame it in this way, and someone says, well, it didn't happen to you, why are you worried? The idea that people believe this, the idea that people believe that just by existing, just by being in this country, that folks in the global majority are a threat and that we're replacing white folks means that I will never be safe. It means that I can't walk down the street and not know, is the person approaching me looking at me and saying, you don't belong here, you're a threat, you need to leave, I need to get rid of you. And so it absolutely makes sense to me that this kind of violence is a reminder. And when, especially when we're talking about Black folks who, lynching was legal, our murders were legal in this country for so much of this country. So when we're thinking about Black folks who've had this history and where it's still happening, yeah, this is something that we can't ignore. This is something that it's like, almost like I was lucky that I was not there, right? Not that this isn't happening to me, this can't happen to me. And so I think that's what your friend isn't getting, that this is part of what has been a very systemized legacy of violence against Black people in the United States. And that continues to be implemented, is continuing to be leveraged by people in certain, as a way to maintain and grasp power, as a way for folks who feel powerless to find like, this is the one way I can feel powerless. And so as long as this is how people in this country think about Black folks, that we're in some ways disposable to help them feel powerful, that we're only here at their sufferance, we're never safe. So yeah, it's an invalidation of generations of history and the continuing threat that exists for Black folks and folks from the global majority in this country. Does that resonate for you in terms of capturing what made that feel so for you?
That that's a large part of it. The other part of it, though, is that when I have other aggressions, microaggressions, it almost feels like those are the tip of the spear that this young man in Buffalo is acting out on the multiple other microaggressions that I experience at this. The people who feel this way just given the opportunity, could do the same thing. I think it's why I respond to microaggressions as strongly as I do, because I don't know what's the next step after you said this to me. What is the next thing that you believe about me, and what would that allow you to do with me or to me or about me, if you are feeling okay about the microaggression that you did do. So yeah, that's also part of it, that my response is stronger than I want it to be, because they're not the same thing, but my body is saying, okay, is the next thing going to be a punch in the face or a whatever the physical piece could come? Because I didn't know you well enough to know that you wouldn't do this first thing. So I'm not sure I know you well enough to say you won't next thing be angry enough to take a weapon and act out on this.
Absolutely. I think this is the other thing that folks often don't get with microaggressions, right? And I want to talk about two different kinds of microaggressions. So first, there's the kind of microaggression where someone like this man in Buffalo is deliberately espousing violence, right? Where this person is not hiding their beliefs. It's very clear what they believe. And then there's a kind of microaggressions that a lot of folks talk about. Well, what about someone who is innocent, someone who just unthinkingly said something and didn't even recognize that it would land as a microaggression? And I think part of the concern with both kinds is that all of them are embedded in beliefs about white supremacy, whether or not we know we hold them, whether or not we get how they're impacting us. And so when I think about that, when I think that we're basically kind of like if I'm thinking about this big, it's just a weird analogy, but if I'm thinking about this weird big bowl and I'm just pulling strips from it, and maybe sometimes I'll get to strip with a very small, not so painful piece of stuff on it. And sometimes I get a really big violent piece. I never know what's going to come. I never know what I'm going to get when I reach into this bowl. And so once I recognize that, wow, this person is drawing from that bowl, then I never know what's going to come next. And it also makes almost every interaction with someone I don't know scary. Because if I have enough interactions where I look at people and I think, I'm willing to trust you, I'm willing to show up, and then I get something that's big tidal wave in my face, what makes me believe that I can trust the next person? And when I do, people don't get what an act of courage that is, how much effort it takes to keep walking and walking and walking towards unknown people and telling myself, and I want to see you as a person who could be good. When so often we get back that, well, actually, you're also drawing from that bowl. Yeah. Thank you.